I have decided to call this bit the messy middle. So series one was all about goal setting and the strategies for doing what needs to be done. And I really wanted series two to be around identity and being the person that you're aspiring to be. This series feels a lot trickier than the last one because that one seemed quite procedural and factual, and it built on top of each other really, really nicely. Whereas having an identity shift and embodying a new way of being, as I said before, just feels super uncomfortable. So this messy middle is just where I am right now. We had the introduction, which was 2 videos ago, which I just was sort of trying to introduce the thought concept behind becoming that person. So rather than it just be a case of ticking things off and doing the actions, the next phase was around like being the person that does. So I wanted to introduce it. Obviously last week was a lot around how uncomfortable it is and how the shift in that, what did I keep calling it? I kept calling it a battery. It's a magnet. The magnet's not quite gelling yet. And this, I feel, just like is taking that one step further to being the messy middle, where we're doing our best to show up as if we are already the person that we're aspiring to be, or as if we have already attained the goals that we're working to attain, because there is all of that neurological evidence which underpins that if you're showing up with that new belief, it sticks a lot better. Back to magnets again. And I think the messy middle is really all about that gap. So living in the gap between the person that you were and the person that you're aspiring to be, or the habits that you had and the habits you're aspiring to have. It's that gap where you have started to do the action points, but not your nervous system hasn't yet caught up. So it is struggling to identify where you're sitting. So as I said, the magnet's just doing this still. So I feel like that's where I am right now. I'm in that messy middle part. And I believe that the reason why it is an issue is because your brain doesn't yet have enough evidence to flip you over. So I think if you think about like the way your brain is set up, it's an evidence-backed system. Now you're going to ask me to think of an example. So if you've always been, and I'm going to use diet as my example because it's one thing I know. If you've always been the sort of person that will quit on the diet before you've finished the first week, and that's happened over numerous occasions, your brain will be like, well, we don't last very long on this type of healthy regime. Let's get back to, we've fallen off the wagon again. Whereas if you're embodying a new identity, it's a case of you need to almost celebrate day by day. No, look at me, I'm still eating well, or I'm still drinking my water, or I am still not having the glasses of wine that I used to have in the evening. The same as, I don't know, if you was a business owner, it might be that you've always put off making sales calls because it feels awkward and uncomfortable, and then every time you do, you're looking for the points that's awkward and uncomfortable, and your brain goes, see, this isn't something that you like doing, and you need to stack the evidence back on the other side to keep doing the calls or keep pitching your business, or if you're, if you have a shop, talking about what you're doing until you then get enough successes that your brain's like, oh, actually that's working now. So yeah, I think it's all that you haven't got enough evidence stacked for the new you to feel ordinary, so your brain's fighting it still, so you're in that messy middle. And as much as I'm doing to show up with my social media, and I don't even know if it's so much with the coaching side of it at the minute. I feel like that's something that's potentially going to come later. But for now, like showing up with the social media, posting every day if I can, being in environments where I'm having conversations around like social media growth or promotions, and potentially working with brands or collaborating with maybe bigger accounts so I can grow my audiences. It's still feeling like I'm a bit of a fish out of water, but I know I need to, just like with everything else, I need to just keep doing it until it becomes comfortable. I don't think anything is comfortable at the beginning. If you think back, if you drive a car, when you first was driving a car, it was like eyes on the road, tentative, like I was like, because because I was proper nervous. Like you would be focusing on every little thing, changing gears, just everything was like a super focus because it was new and you was concentrating so much. Fast forward to when you're an experienced driver, sometimes I get to work and can't even remember getting there. It's like, oh, how did this happen? Because everything's on autopilot, because you've done it so many times. You've gone from potentially identifying as, oh, I'm a new driver, or I'm a nervous driver, and then suddenly you don't even realise, then you become like a confident driver or an experienced driver just through the passing of time and the amount of repetitions. And that needs to happen through repetitions, because if you pass your test and didn't drive for 4 years, just because there's been a passing of time doesn't mean you're then experienced. You're just an older new person, and you're still a new driver because you haven't put the reps in. So I think doing it uncomfortably is part of the journey, whatever that might be. As I said, you hopefully, if you've been following along, you're on your own path to something that you're trying to achieve. And if you've followed through on all of the videos, then you should be hopefully in this messy middle part with me, where you know what you're trying to achieve. You're taking the small steps to get there, celebrating the tiny wins along the way, but equally, because you're challenging yourself to do things that aren't necessarily comfortable, it's feeling still a little bit awkward. So I just think that this is a really natural progression. It's a natural part of the being comfortable and having it as your default response, like with driving. I think that's the best analogy I can think of at the minute. And I'm sure that at some point I'll be able to talk really confidently about maybe being a content creator. I said maybe. But I will have at least had the experience of time to be able to, and repetition, to be able to make it be authentic and true for me. Whether or not it becomes like a super successful thing, I'm not even sure that that's what I'm aiming for. I would just like to challenge myself to show up and see where it takes me. possibly I need to have a goal. Just as I've said it, I'm thinking actually, no, I need to have something that I'm working towards. Oh, it was being monetized, wasn't it? I wanted to have my YouTube account at a point where I could monetize it. Literally not because I'm expecting to be able to like retire on my earnings, but just to have the sense of accomplishment that I had set out to achieve that particular goal, and I did the steps and I showed up until it happened. See, why do I not just know that? Doing it uncomfortably is part of the journey. It's part of the challenge. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are failing. It just means that you are changing and your body is feeling uncomfortable and feeling a bit odd about it because it's adjusting into a new system or a new way of being. One of the questions I wanted to pose for this episode is, when did you last act like the new you? And it might be that you can look back and say, yeah, there was like last night I had water instead of wine when I sat down with my evening meal, because the new me doesn't drink every single night. And you could, like, naming it, I think helps like reduce any of the friction, or recognizing that it was like, it goes back to the celebrating the tiny wins, because you'd be like, I did that. Or even if you said, do you know what, I did have that glass of wine last night and I afterwards thought I probably could have done without it, then maybe the next step will be to identify or like set yourself a goal of 3 things that you're going to do this next week that aligns to that new identity. So it might be 3 nights out of the next week, I'm not going to have wine. I'm going to set myself a target of that's what how new me would show up. It could be, and one of the ones I did recently was I'm noticing, I think I'm like that, all the things are coming with age and being like, I don't know what it's called when it's when you've passed menopause, when you're like that side of it. I'm noticing I'm super achy, like all of my joints and that just feel tight. Probably it would help if I did lose a few pounds, but one of the actions I'd also tried to start doing, and again it's something that I have to, at the moment I have to nudge myself in a reminder, and I've got a little tick box on my diary where I can sort of tick off as I achieve each day, is just to, when I wake up in the morning, before I even do anything else, like as I'm laying in bed, although not all of the, not, I do some stretching. So I lay in bed and I've got a series of stretches that I do while I'm still in bed, and then as I get out, I finish off with some stretches like on the floor by the side of the bed. And again, it's one of those things where it all felt very unnatural, but I want to be fitter and healthier and a little bit more mobile, or I don't want to lose mobility necessarily as I age. So I need to be the person that stretches at baby steps. I'm not going to say I'm the person that exercises, because that feels way too big of a jump. But for now, it's just, I'm going to do stretching every single day and make the most of, keeping my joints as supple as I can. So for you, again, it's just the idea that for this next week, or again, start off by thinking about when you last showed up as the new, as when the new identity last showed up. And then for the week ahead, have 3 targets or 3 like action points of the way your new identity, or you plan to show up in your new identity for the week ahead. And then we can check them off together and see how hopefully the habit starts to stick a bit tighter. And then your mind can collect the proof, which is way back to the beginning where I said it all feels a bit uncomfortable because your mind hasn't got proof that this is you at the moment. You can start collecting the proof to reinforce that new identity. So that's my week for this week. I literally haven't yet thought about my 3 actions for the week ahead. Actually, no, what I might do is I might post them on my stories, because posting on my stories is something that I've sort of pledged to do ideally, and I want to be doing it every single day until I get to where I want to be, because being present on the stories I feel is part of my new identity. So watch out for that. That will at least be my number 1. Let's have a quick think. Number 2 is I am working on one of the other social media platforms to grow my accounts. I feel like I'm not putting all of my eggs into this one basket. I'm spreading them because I'm a little bit risk averse. So on another account or another channel, I am working with Home Life and You, which I mentioned before. So I'm hoping to get like a spotlight with them. I've filmed something. We're just making sure it all makes sense. So that's happening over there, and then I'm going this way. And so that's number 2, is to promote that video or share it when it goes live. Fingers crossed that it gets approved and there isn't any problems. And then on the other side of things, I started also posting. So the stories I post on here, I've been sharing on TikTok as well. And I've never really played in that on that playground before. It's very new to me. It feels much more fast paced and like a bit frantic, whereas this feels more aligned to me because I feel like I'm just naturally a lot more chattier and a bit softer. And I don't know if the vibe is quite my style, but I am also looking at how I can utilize over there, and just, as I said, play in that playground to see how it feels a little bit more. So I will, for the next week as well, continue to show up on that platform also. So I think is that 3? Possibly. But again, they're 3 different things that will help me in my bid to growing my presence online. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.